Do you ever wonder about the real power players of history, the ones who shaped kingdoms and influenced empires, not just by birth but by sheer will? Did you know some of the most influential figures weren't kings or knights, but the women who outlived their royal husbands? Prepare to dive into the untold stories of power, intrigue, and relentless determination spanning the tumultuous medieval history from the 5th to the 15th centuries. Number 1. Eleanor of Aquitaine. Eleanor of Aquitaine, born around 1122, was a woman whose life story reads like an epic saga, full of twists, turns, and an incredible amount of political maneuvering that only intensified after her second husband, King Henry II of England. She was a powerhouse from birth, inheriting the vast Duchy of Aquitaine, a territory larger than the King of France's own domain. Upon her father's death in 1137, this inheritance made her the most sought-after bride in Europe, leading to her first marriage to Louis VII of France. Their union was tumultuous, marked by Eleanor's independent spirit and her controversial involvement in the Second Crusade, where her presence and decisions sparked widespread gossip and criticism. She dressed in Amazonian style, rode horseback alongside her knights, and was even accused of an affair with her uncle, Raymond of Poitiers, Prince of Antioch. The marriage was eventually annulled in 1152. A rare and risky move for a queen in medieval times, but one that Eleanor orchestrated with clear intent. Within weeks of her annulment, Eleanor married Henry, Duke of Normandy, who would soon become King Henry II of England. This second marriage shocked Europe, for Henry was significantly younger than Eleanor, and their union united Aquitaine with the burgeoning Angevin Empire, creating a formidable force that challenged the French crown directly. With Henry, Eleanor had 8 children, including the future kings, Richard the Lionheart and John. However, their marriage, like her first, was far from peaceful. Eleanor's independent nature and her perceived influence over her sons often clashed with Henry's desire for absolute control. She was even accused of instigating her sons' rebellions against their father in the 1170s, leading Henry to imprison her for 16 long years. Her release came in 1189 upon Henry II's death, and it marked the beginning of her most astonishing period of power as a Dowager Queen. At nearly 70 years old, Eleanor emerged from confinement not diminished, but invigorated, ready to assert her authority and shape the future of the Angevin Empire. Her eldest surviving son, Richard I, known as Richard the Lionheart, immediately entrusted her with immense power. She was effectively the regent of England, while Richard embarked on the Third Crusade. Eleanor journeyed across England, releasing prisoners, confirming charters, and setting the kingdom's affairs in order. She was not merely a figurehead. She made critical decisions, appointed officials, and ensured the stability of the realm in her son's absence. Chronicles from the time, such as those of Roger of Hoveden, describe her active involvement in administration and governance, showing her traveling tirelessly despite her advanced age. When news reached England that Richard had been captured in Austria on his way home from the crusade, Eleanor sprang into action. She was the driving force behind raising the enormous ransom demanded for his release. She personally negotiated with European rulers, marshaled resources, and oversaw the collection of funds from across England and Aquitaine. Her diplomatic skill and persistent efforts were instrumental in securing Richard's freedom. She even traveled to Germany herself in 1194 to oversee the final arrangements and accompany her beloved son back to England, a journey fraught with danger for a woman of her age and status. Her commitment to her son and her kingdom was unwavering. Upon Richard's return, Eleanor continued to play a pivotal role in politics. She mediated disputes between Richard and his rebellious brother John, who had tried to seize the throne during Richard's captivity. Her diplomatic prowess and maternal authority were crucial in reconciling the two brothers, preventing further civil war. When Richard was mortally wounded in 1199, he named John as his heir, largely due to Eleanor's persistent advocacy. She believed that John, despite his past treachery, was the legitimate choice. and worked to ensure a smooth succession, a testament to her pragmatism and dedication to the stability of the Angevin Empire. After John ascended to the throne, Eleanor continued to be a formidable presence. She was vital in securing the loyalty of Aquitaine, a region that often wavered in its allegiance to the English crown. Her personal connection to the duchy and her long-standing influence there were indispensable. She undertook arduous journeys, traveling from England to Aquitaine to assert her authority and quell potential rebellions, even in her late 70s and early 80s. Accounts from historians like John Gillingham highlight her incredible energy and political acumen in these final years. In 1202, at around 80 years old, she bravely defended her castle of Mirebeau against her rebellious grandson, Arthur of Brittany, who sought to claim the throne from John. Trapped inside, she was only saved by the timely arrival of King John, who captured Arthur. This dramatic episode highlights her continued resilience and willingness to directly engage in military and political conflicts. Eleanor of Aquitaine finally passed away in 1204 at the impressive age of 82, having lived a life of extraordinary power and influence, leaving behind a legacy that fundamentally shaped the course of English and French history. Her tenure as a Dowager Queen demonstrated a level of political and administrative mastery that few men, let alone women, achieved in the medieval era. She was truly a queen who ruled, not just reigned. Number 2. Blanche of Castile. Blanche of Castile, born around 1188, was a grandniece of Eleanor of Aquitaine, and it seems the political acumen and strong will ran in the family. Her marriage to Louis VIII of France in 1200 was part of a peace treaty between England and France, and it thrust her onto the stage of French politics. While her husband reigned for only 3 years, from 1223 to 1226, Blanche was reportedly a strong influence on him, known for her piety, intelligence. Her true test, and where her power truly solidified, came with the premature death, leaving her a Dowager Queen with an immense challenge. Her eldest son, the future Louis IX, was only 12 years old. This meant Blanche of Castile became the regent of France, a position she would hold for nearly a decade, and even later after her son came of age. The regency of a child king in medieval Europe was often a recipe for chaos and civil war, as ambitious nobles saw it as an opportunity to reclaim lost power or challenge the crown. Blanche faced an immediate and powerful coalition of rebellious barons who resented the strong central authority the crown had begun to establish. These magnates, led by figures like Peter Mauclerc of Brittany and Hugh X of Lusignan, formed a league against the crown, attempting to undermine the young king's authority and, by extension, Blanche's regency. But Blanche was no shrinking violet. She met these challenges with incredible resolve, shrewd political strategy, and even military leadership. Chroniclers of the time, such as Matthew Paris, noted her exceptional energy and determination. She didn't hesitate to take direct action. She personally led royal armies into the field, something incredibly rare for a medieval queen, let alone a regent. For example, in 1227 she led troops against the rebellious forces in the Loire Valley, securing vital strongholds and demonstrating that the royal government under her leadership was not to be trifled with. Her presence on the battlefield, though symbolic for a woman, galvanized her forces and struck fear into her opponents. She famously rode armed, a symbol of her direct involvement in the struggle for her son's throne. Beyond military strength, Blanche of Castile excelled in diplomacy and intelligence gathering. She masterfully played her enemies against each other, exploiting their rivalries and distrust. She used a combination of intimidation and negotiation, offering concessions to some rebellious lords while isolating and punishing others. She cultivated alliances with key churchmen and powerful nobles who remained loyal to the crown, ensuring a strong base of support. For instance, she secured the loyalty of Theobald IV of Champagne, a powerful and initially ambivalent noble, through a mix of political pressure and perhaps even personal charm, eventually solidifying his support against other rebellious factions. Her keen understanding of feudal politics, made her to navigate the treacherous waters of medieval French nobility with surprising success. One of Blanche's most significant achievements during her regency was the successful conclusion of the Albigensian Crusade in southern France. This long and brutal conflict against the Cathar heresy had ravaged the region for decades. Blanche, inheriting the war from her husband, brought it to a close with the Treaty of Paris in 1229. This treaty effectively annexed the vast and wealthy county of Toulouse into the royal domain, greatly expanding the King of France's power and territory. This was a masterstroke of diplomacy, cementing royal authority in a region that had historically been fiercely independent and often rebellious. Sources, like the Chronicle of Tours, praise her steadfastness during this complex period. Blanche also paid close attention to the education and upbringing of her son Louis IX. She instilled in him a deep sense of piety, justice, and responsibility which would later make him one of France's most revered monarchs and eventually a saint. She carefully controlled his public appearances and his exposure to the court, ensuring he was protected from corrupting influences and guided towards becoming a just ruler. Even after Louis IX came of age in 1234, Blanche did not simply step back from power. She continued to act as a trusted advisor, effectively serving as a co-ruler for many years. Her son deeply respected her judgment and often deferred to her counsel. Her influence was so strong that some historians describe her as the true power behind the throne throughout Louis IX's early reign. Her political savvy was especially evident in her management of relations with England. She worked to maintain a fragile peace with Henry III of England, often negotiating directly with him, seeking to avoid renewed warfare and consolidate the gains made during the Albigensian Crusade. She even played a direct role in securing the marriage of Louis IX to Marguerite of Provence, an alliance that further strengthened France's position in southern Europe. Blanche's power was not without its critics. Some nobles and even members of the royal family resented her firm hand and foreign origins. There were whispers and satirical songs about her, demanding nature and her perceived dominance over her son. Yet her effectiveness cannot be denied. When Louis IX departed on the Seventh Crusade in 1248, he once again entrusted the regency of France to his mother, despite her being in her 60s. This second regency, though shorter, showcased her continued administrative capability. She efficiently managed the kingdom's finances, maintained order, and continued to provide stability in her son's absence. Blanche of Castile died in 1252, leaving behind a kingdom far more unified and powerful than the one she had inherited as a regent. Her legacy is one of unwavering strength, strategic brilliance, and an unparalleled dedication to the French crown, establishing a strong foundation for one of France's most successful reigns. Number 3. Isabella of France. Isabella of France, often famously or perhaps infamously known as the She-Wolf of France, was born around 1295 and was the daughter of the powerful King Philip IV of France, making her a princess of one of Europe's most formidable monarchies. Her marriage to King Edward II of England in 1308 was intended to solidify peace between the two rival kingdoms, a common political strategy of the era. However, their union was far from peaceful, largely due to Edward II's controversial relationships with male favorites, particularly Piers Gaveston and later Hugh Despenser the Younger. These relationships alienated the English nobility and pushed Isabella, who initially tried to make her marriage work, to the fringes of courtly power and influence. As the years passed, Isabella's frustration grew. She was increasingly sidelined by Edward and the Despensers, who controlled access to the king and monopolized royal patronage. Accounts from chroniclers like Jean Froissart illustrate the contempt and disdain Isabella faced, and the loss of her dower lands further fueled her resentment. Her position became precarious, and she feared for her own safety and that of her children, especially her eldest son, the future Edward III. The breaking point arrived in 1325 when Isabella was sent to France to negotiate a peace treaty with her brother, King Charles IV. This diplomatic mission provided her with the perfect opportunity to escape her suffocating life at Edward's court and orchestrate her revenge. Once in France, Isabella refused to return to England, openly declaring her opposition to Edward II and the Despensers. It was in Paris that she formed a pivotal alliance with Roger Mortimer, a powerful English baron who had previously been imprisoned by Edward II and had recently escaped to France. Their relationship, both political and romantic, would become the driving force behind the dramatic events that followed. Isabella and Mortimer became the de facto leaders of a growing opposition movement against Edward II. They rallied discontented English exiles, gathered financial support, and began planning an invasion of England. In September 1326, Isabella and Mortimer, along with a small force of mercenaries and English exiles, landed in Suffolk. The invasion was remarkably successful, a testament to the widespread unpopularity of Edward II and the Despensers. English nobles and commoners alike flocked to Isabella's banner, viewing her as a liberator from tyranny. Edward II found himself abandoned and was soon captured, as were the Despensers, who were swiftly executed with a cruelty that shocked even medieval sensibilities. Isabella's decisive action had effectively overthrown a reigning monarch, a truly unprecedented feat for a queen in England. With Edward II imprisoned, Isabella and Mortimer held the reins of power. In January 1327, Edward II was formally deposed by Parliament, and his 14-year-old son was proclaimed King Edward III. However, the true power rested with Isabella and Mortimer, who ruled as regents in all but name. They controlled the royal administration, decided policy, and managed the kingdom's finances. Isabella's signature appeared on official documents, and she presided over councils, making her one of the most powerful women in English history. Historians like Alison Weir describe her as having a grip on the levers of power that was truly exceptional. During their period of de facto rule, Isabella and Mortimer faced challenges from within and without. They had to consolidate their power and ensure the stability of the realm. They negotiated the Treaty of Northampton with Scotland in 1328, ending the long and costly First War of Scottish Independence, though this treaty was highly unpopular in England for granting Scotland independence. Isabella also oversaw the execution of Edward II in September 1327, a controversial act that removed any lingering threat of his return to power but stained her reputation. The exact circumstances of his death are still debated by historians, but it is widely accepted that it served the interests of the new regime. However, Isabella's and Mortimer's dominance began to unravel. Their rule became increasingly autocratic, and they accumulated vast wealth and lands for themselves, alienating many of the nobles who had initially supported them. Mortimer, in particular, became arrogant and overbearing, treating the young King Edward III as a mere puppet. The burgeoning resentment coalesced around the young king who, now 17, yearned to rule in his own right. Edward III, with the help of trusted allies, orchestrated a dramatic coup d'etat in October 1330. He and his supporters secretly entered Nottingham Castle through a hidden passage, surprised Mortimer and Isabella, and arrested Mortimer. Roger Mortimer was swiftly tried for treason and executed in November 1330, just 4 years after he and Isabella had overthrown Edward II. Isabella, as a queen mother, was spared execution, but her political career was effectively over. Edward III removed her from power and confiscated much of her wealth, sending her into comfortable but enforced retirement at Castle Rising in Norfolk. While she remained a figure of status and was occasionally visited by her son, she never again wielded the political influence she had during her regency. She lived for nearly 3 more decades, dying in 1358. Isabella of France's story is a compelling example of a dowager queen who, through a combination of desperation, ambition, and ruthless political maneuvering, rose to extraordinary power. only to be brought down by the very son she had placed on the throne. Her journey from neglected queen to powerful regent, and ultimately to political exile, is a stark reminder of the volatile nature of medieval power. Number 4. Theophanu. Theophanu, born in Constantinople around 955, was a Byzantine princess, though her exact lineage is debated among historians. Some sources suggest she was of humble origins, others that she was related to the imperial family. Regardless of her birth, her destiny was sealed by political necessity. She was sent to the West in 972 to marry Otto II, the Holy Roman Emperor, a union arranged by Otto I, the emperor's father, as part of a peace treaty between the Holy Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire. This marriage brought the sophisticated culture and administrative traditions of Constantinople to the German court, a stark contrast to the more rustic customs of the West. Theophanu is known for her intelligence, education, and refined tastes, often bringing Byzantine luxuries and intellectual pursuits to the Germanic court. Her husband, Otto II, reigned for a relatively short period from 973 to 983. During their marriage, Theophanu was a significant presence, influencing court life and acting as a co-ruler in many respects, signing official documents alongside her husband and actively participating in imperial councils. Her Byzantine heritage often made her a target of suspicion and resentment from some German nobles and clergy who viewed her as an outsider. However, her powerful intellect and her strong will allowed her to navigate these challenges. True extent of Theophanu's power and political genius emerged after Otto II's sudden death in Rome in 983. Their son, the future Otto III, was only 3 years old, a vulnerable age for an heir to such a vast and powerful empire. This immediately plunged the Holy Roman Empire into a precarious political situation. Many powerful magnates saw an opportunity to seize control, most notably Henry II, Duke of Bavaria, known as Henry the Quarrelsome, who kidnapped the young Otto III and attempted to usurp the throne. Theophanu, now a dowager empress, acted with incredible speed and determination. She was in Rome when her husband died, and she immediately secured the support of the leading figures in the imperial court and the church. She relied on the loyalty of influential archbishops and trusted officials who recognized her authority and her right to act as regent for her son. She traveled back to Germany, gathering support along the way, and confronted Henry the Quarrelsome directly. Accounts from contemporary chroniclers like Tietmar of Merseburg highlight her strategic brilliance during this crisis. She negotiated with Henry, using a combination of diplomatic pressure and implied threat of force to secure the return of her son. The young Otto III was eventually handed over to her at a diet in 984, a significant victory for Theophanu and a crucial step in preserving the Ottonian dynasty. From 985 until her death in 991, Theophanu served as the undisputed regent for her son Otto III. Her regency was marked by remarkable stability and effective governance, especially considering the challenges of ruling such a diverse empire with a child emperor. She maintained tight control over the imperial administration, appointed loyal officials, and rigorously enforced imperial laws. She regularly presided over imperial diets where important decisions were made, and she oversaw military campaigns to secure the empire's borders, particularly against the Slavic tribes on the eastern frontier. Her leadership ensured that the Ottonian Empire did not disintegrate during the vulnerable period of a child's minority. Theophanu also understood the symbolic power of the imperial office. She emphasized her son's imperial lineage, ensuring that his claim to the throne was beyond doubt. She maintained a splendid court, reflecting the grandeur of both the Byzantine and Roman imperial traditions. She was also a patron of arts and learning, bringing Byzantine influences to the Western Empire. Historians often note her intellectual curiosity and her fluency in Greek, which set her apart from many of her Western contemporaries. Her regency period saw the continued flow of Byzantine cultural influences into the Holy Roman Empire, from architecture to scholarship, solidifying the idea of an imperial renewal, a renovio imperia, that would later characterize Adelaide III's reign pontificia. She fostered diplomatic ties with various kingdoms, demonstrating a nuanced understanding of the European political landscape. For instance, she maintained peaceful relations with Byzantium, leveraging her background to mediate any potential conflicts. She also dealt with internal dissent, firmly asserting imperial authority whenever challenged by rebellious nobles. Theophanu's rule was characterized by peace and prosperity within the empire, a testament to her administrative capabilities and her skill in managing complex political relationships. She successfully steered the empire through a period of potential fragmentation, ensuring a smooth transition of power to her son when he came of age. Theophanu's legacy is often overshadowed by the later, more flamboyant reign of her son, Otto III, who dreamed of a universal Christian empire. However, it was her tireless work and political genius during his minority that laid the foundation for his reign. She ensured the survival and strength of the Ottonian dynasty at a time when its future seemed most uncertain. She died in 991, having secured her son's throne and left the Holy Roman Empire stronger and more unified than she found it. Her tomb in the Church of St. Pantaleon in Cologne became a place of reverence, a testament to the profound respect she had earned. Theophanu stands as a powerful example of a dowager empress who not only protected her son's inheritance, but actively shaped the destiny of one of Europe's most important medieval empires. Number 5. Adelaide of Burgundy. Adelaide of Burgundy, born around 931, was a truly remarkable figure whose life was intertwined with the highest levels of power in 10th century Europe. She was the daughter of King Rudolf II of Burgundy and Bertha of Swabia, giving her significant royal lineage from birth. Her life was defined by a series of marriages that consistently placed her at the center of political struggles for control of Italy and the Holy Roman Empire. Her first marriage was to Lothar II, the King of Italy, around 947. This union was significant, as it made her Queen of Italy, a title that carried immense prestige and political weight. However, Lothar died relatively young in 950, likely poisoned by his rival, Berengar II of Italy, who then usurped the Italian throne and tried to force Adelaide to marry his son, Adalbert, to legitimize his rule. Adelaide, however, refused to be a pawn in Berengar's schemes. She bravely resisted his attempts to control her, and even went so far as to appeal for protection from Otto I, the powerful king of Germany and future Holy Roman Emperor. Her defiance led to her imprisonment by Berengar, a perilous situation for a young queen. She famously escaped her captivity in 951, a dramatic feat that further cemented her reputation for courage and resilience. She sought refuge in the castle of Canossa, from where she sent a plea for help to Otto I. Otto I, seizing the opportunity to extend his influence into Italy, responded to her call. He invaded Italy, defeated Berengar, and married Adelaide in Pavia in 951. This second marriage to the most powerful ruler in Western Europe fundamentally changed the course of her life and the political landscape of the continent. It made her Queen of Germany, and, crucially, when Otto I was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in Rome in 960. Adelaide was crowned Empress, alongside him. This joint coronation, a symbolic act, underscored her shared authority and status within the emerging Holy Roman Empire. As Empress, Adelaide was an active and influential co-ruler with Otto I. She was known for her intelligence, piety, and administrative skills. She often acted as her husband's advisor and played a significant role in diplomatic affairs. She accompanied Otto on many of his campaigns and journeys, demonstrating her close involvement in the day-to-day governance of the empire. She was a patron of the church and monastic reforms, founding several monasteries and abbeys, most notably the Abbey of San Salvatore in Pavia. Her patronage extended to arts and scholarship, contributing to a period of cultural revival in the empire. Theophanu's position as a powerful dowager empress became truly evident after Otto I's death in 973. Although her son Otto II succeeded, his father Adelaide continued to wield considerable influence. She remained a respected figure, maintaining her own court and actively participating in imperial politics. Her authority was so great that she often acted as a mediator in disputes and continued to be a significant voice in imperial councils. This continued power, however, sometimes led to friction with her daughter-in-law. Theophanu, who also possessed a strong personality and ambition, the relationship between the two powerful empresses was complex, marked by periods of cooperation and rivalry. At one point, Adelaide was even briefly exiled from court by Otto II, possibly due to Theophanu's influence, but she was soon recalled, demonstrating her indispensable status. Her most significant period as a dowager empress came during the minority of her grandson Otto III. After Otto II's premature death in 983, and during Theophanu's regency for the young Otto III, Adelaide played a crucial supportive role, particularly in Italy. When Theophanu died in 991, Adelaide, by then around 60 years old, stepped forward to co-regent for her grandson alongside Archbishop Willigis of Mainz and other powerful figures. She once again demonstrated her remarkable political acumen and leadership. During her second regency, Adelaide focused on consolidating imperial power in Italy, a region she knew intimately from her early life. She skillfully managed the complex politics of the Italian magnates and cities, ensuring their loyalty to the young emperor. She suppressed rebellions and maintained order, actively campaigning and negotiating to secure the imperial position. She was particularly effective in dealing with various Italian factions and asserting the emperor's authority over the papacy and the powerful Roman nobility, a role she had played for decades. Her presence ensured continuity and stability in the Italian territories of the empire, which were often prone to rebellion and fragmentation. Adelaide's piety deepened in her later years, and she retired to the Abbey of San Salvatore in Pavia, which she had founded. However, even in retirement, she remained a figure of immense influence, often consulted by her grandson and other rulers. She passed away in 999, having lived an extraordinary life that saw her as Queen of Italy, Queen of Germany, and twice Holy Roman Empress and Regent. She was renowned for her wisdom, her diplomatic skills, and her unwavering dedication to the Ottonian dynasty. Adelaide was canonized as a saint shortly after her death, a testament to her piety and the lasting respect she commanded. Her story illustrates how a dowager queen, through her strength of character and political brilliance, could shape the destiny of an entire empire across multiple generations. Number 6. Agnes of Poitou. Agnes of Poitou, born around 1025, was a princess of the Duchy of Aquitaine, a region known for its strong, independent women, including her more famous distant relative, Eleanor of Aquitaine. She married Henry III, the Holy Roman Emperor, in 1043, a union that solidified the power of the Salian dynasty, as Empress Agnes was known for her piety and her active involvement in ecclesiastical affairs, particularly her support for the reform movements within the church. She was considered an influential figure during her husband's reign, which ended prematurely in 1056. Her husband's death left her in a precarious position as a dowager empress. For their son, the future Henry IV, was only 6 years old. The death of a powerful emperor and the ascension of a child king typically triggered a period of instability in the Holy Roman Empire, as ambitious nobles and powerful churchmen sought to gain influence or challenge the imperial authority. Agnes of Poitou, as regent for her young son, immediately faced immense challenges. The German dukes and princes, who had been largely kept in check by the strong hand of Henry III, now saw an opportunity to assert their independence. Agnes's regency from 1056 to 1062 was marked by intense political maneuvering and power struggles. Unlike some of the other dowager queens who were known for their military prowess, Agnes initially relied more on diplomacy and strategic alliances. She appointed powerful figures to key positions, including bishops and archbishops, hoping to secure their loyalty. However, these appointments sometimes backfired, as the chosen officials often pursued their own interests rather than those of the young emperor or the empress regent. One of the most significant challenges Agnes faced was the growing assertiveness of the papacy. During her husband's reign, Henry III had exercised significant control over the Church, appointing popes and reforming ecclesiastical practices. However, with a child emperor and a female regent, the papacy, under figures like Pope Nicholas II and later Pope Alexander II, began to assert its independence from imperial control. This period saw the beginnings of the investiture controversy, a monumental struggle between secular rulers and the Church over the appointment of bishops and the very nature of temporal and spiritual authority. Agnes, as regent, found herself caught in the crossfire, trying to maintain imperial prerogatives while also upholding her reputation for piety and support for church reform. Accounts from contemporary chronicles, like those of Lambert of Hersfeld, detail the complex political landscape Agnes had to navigate. Despite her efforts, Agnes faced mounting opposition from several powerful German princes, including Archbishop Anno II of Cologne and Otto of Nordheim, Duke of Bavaria. These magnates felt that Agnes, as a woman and a foreigner, was not fit to rule, and that her policies were weakening the empire. Their discontent culminated in the coup of Kaiserswerth in 1062. This was a dramatic event where Archbishop Anno, along with other conspirators, abducted the young Henry IV from his mother while they were at Kaiserswerth. Conspirators tricked the young king onto a boat which then sailed away with him, leaving Agnes powerless and devastated. This coup effectively ended Agnes's direct political regency, although she did not entirely fade from the scene. Her abduction of her son was a brutal blow, yet she continued to be a significant figure in imperial politics, albeit from a more passive role. She sought solace and guidance from the Church, eventually retiring from court to live a life of increased religious devotion, often taking up residence in monastic communities. She became a close spiritual advisor to several popes, including Gregory VII, who would become a key figure in the investiture controversy against her own son, Henry IV. This created a highly unusual and complex dynamic where the Empress Dowager was closer to the papacy than to her own son. Even in her semi-retirement, Agnes of Poitou remained an important intermediary between the papacy and the empire, often traveling to Rome and acting as a mediator in the escalating conflicts between her son and the reformist popes. Her unique position, respected by both secular and ecclesiastical powers, allowed her to play a crucial, if often understated, role in the diplomacy of the time. She leveraged her spiritual authority and her familial ties to attempt to bridge the divide between her son and the Holy See, though often with limited success due to the deep ideological rifts. Chroniclers of the time often remarked on her sincere efforts to reconcile these powerful factions. Agnes of Poitou died in Rome in 1077, shortly after witnessing her son Henry IV perform the humiliating walk to Canossa, begging for forgiveness from Pope Gregory VII. While her direct political influence was curtailed by the coup, her story highlights the immense pressures and dangers faced by dowager queens, who took on the regency of a powerful empire. She faced internal dissent, external challenges from the papacy, and ultimately the loss of direct control over her son. Yet her enduring piety and her continued, albeit indirect, influence as a respected figure and mediator demonstrate a different kind of power, one rooted in spiritual authority and a deep understanding of the political landscape, even in her later years of partial withdrawal. Her life stands as a testament to the complex and often tragic challenges faced by medieval empresses thrust into the role of sole ruler for a child king.